There's about 6 different ways to build a curb for a custom shower pan. You use 2x4s, you stack up a couple of 2x4s, you put some cement board on there and a little bit of other prep and build your curb that way. There's also, use a couple of 2x4s, you wrap those 2x4s with wire mesh, then you use this mud mix from your shower pan to coat that to build your curb. Then you have to waterproof it. There's a little bit more process to that. Then you have a preformed curb that you thin set down to the floor and to the shower pan, and then you wrap that with a membrane to waterproof it. Then there's preformed curbs that are already wrapped with a membrane. You just thin set that to the floor and to the pan, do a little bit of work on the edges to waterproof it, and you're done. Then there's Curdy board, where you have the option, you can cut strips out of the Curdy board and make this curb exactly as tall as you want and as wide as you want. You just thin set that down to the floor and to the pan, and then if you want more pieces, you just thin set those together. By the end of this video, you'll be able to decide which method you're going to go with, and also I'm going to show you exactly how to install a curb. Hey everybody, Joe the Tender here. It's the day after Christmas, it's snowing outside, so it's a good day to be inside filming. I'm up here in good old northern Minnesota, and it's actually not very cold today. Really actually a nice day, but kind of nasty like I said. Anyway, so in this video I'm going to show you how to build a curb inside a custom shower. Now like I said in the very beginning of the video, there's several different ways that you can go about building this curb. Whether it's built or it's preformed and you just install. Each of these are very similar on the things you need to do and think about before you install them, and I'm going to go through that for you so that you know exactly what you need to do. And by the end of this video, you'll be able to make a decision on which one of these curbs you would like to maybe go with. And so to set this up where we're at right now, I'm going to be talking about a preformed curb at the very beginning here, and I'm going to show you what you would want to do and what I do when I am installing a preformed curb. So here, let's watch. Well, I like to put a temporary curb in and then put the curb in after the pan is done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stack two 2x4s and screw these to the floor, and then tomorrow when the pan dries we'll unscrew these and then I'll put the real curb in. But just to kind of talk about what I'm going to do here, because I'm going to make my curb 4 inches and I need to figure out 4 inches in just for the curb alone, but I also am going to end the tile on this side of the wall, and so I need to figure for my tile to end right here. Okay, I want to jump in here real quick because this is kind of a critical area and you really don't realize that you messed this up until you get towards the end of your tile installation. You already have your walls done, now you're going to install the tile on your curb. Now this corner, you want to be sure that your tile is going to end at that corner and be flush with it. You can even be a little shy of it, that's fine. Because what happens is if you bring it out and then when you bring your trim to that tile, a lot of times the trim doesn't line up with the tile correctly and it turns out to be an ugly area. And so whether your trim be too tall or too shorter than the tile is usually what happens. So then it just turns out to be an ugly area and you really can't dress it up and look nice. So if you bring that curb in from the corner, at least the thickness of the tile plus the thin set and maybe even a little bit more, because you can always build the tile out away from the curb to make it flush with that corner with extra thin set, but you can't shrink it in. I mean, you can maybe shrink it in a little if you grind the back of the tile, but that's a lot of work. So if you just figure anywhere from 5/8 to 3/4 of an inch, you're usually pretty safe. Now my tile is 5/16 of an inch plus 1/8 of an inch is what I figure for thin set, so we're looking at 7/16. So I'd probably be safe if I brought mine in at 9/16 of an inch. 5/8 somewhere in there, then I can build out a little bit. So I know that I'm coming in a 1/2 inch right here from the corner, or 9/16. I'm going to actually go 9/16. And now what I'm going to do to get the same exact measurement down there, I'm just going to measure and see what this was. It's 34 and 3/16. I'll subtract what I'm going to use for my curb to show where I actually want my 2x4 to sit on here, my temporary. So that's going to be 4 inches. So I'd make it 30 and 3/16. I'll measure over here 30 and 3/16. Now we're just going to snap this line. You good?
Yep.
Okay. I'll stick this 2x4 on, make sure it's straight with this, and I'll screw that in. Okay, so what I have here is I have some more Curdy board. Now this is a 2-inch thick Curdy board. And this stuff is what I'm going to use to build a shelf that goes the length of the shower. And I'll show you that in another video. And I'm also going to use this to build the curb, and I'm going to use it to build a bench. And so what I'm working on right now is the curb. What I like to do when I'm cutting this 2-inch thick stuff is I just use a circular saw. It cuts with a utility knife, but you'd have to cut it a few times, and you really get a nice cut when you use a circular saw with it. And so that's how I like to do it. And my 4-inch right now is right on this line, so I'm not even going to draw a line. I'm just going to follow that with my saw.
Okay, now that we cut our Curdy board, we're going to come back inside the house, pull our temporary curb, and now we're going to pre-fit these pieces of Curdy board that we just cut. You don't want them to be too tight because you want to put thin set on the edges, on the sides of these curbs on the wall. And so now we're going to spread some thin set alongside the curb and on the floor. And this is going to ensure that we get a good bond. You're also going to want to back butter the pieces of Curdy board that you're going to place into the thin set for the curb.
Stick this on here. Now I'm going to make sure I'm level. I'm level. Now I'm just going to go through and put some screws in again, some longer ones. And while I'm doing this, I'm going to make sure I don't screw it down so hard that I go out of level. Okay, I'm still nice and level. I put a couple of screws in there just to hold it. Now I'm going to put my last piece of Curdy board on. And I'm just going to butter it. I'm going to back butter this side too. I also want to make sure that I'm not going the wrong way in here. If anything, I want it to pitch in towards the shower, because I am going to pitch the tile anyway. But you can start out by being level, but you can see I pitched it in a little bit. If I lift up, it's level. If I push it down, it's not, which is fine because I want my tile to tilt in. And so I already have a little bit of a pitch going down into the shower, but I'm going to make it even more of a pitch once we install the tile, just so I make sure that when the shower is running, that any water is going to run off the curb into the shower instead of out. Okay, so now I'm going to show you a different kind of curb. This is a preformed curb, and you're going to have to put a membrane over it when you're done installing it. Now you can see I put this curb in before I did the pan, and I used these 2x4s, and I built a brace so that I could screw it into the wall to hold it in place. And then I put a 1/2-inch sheet, or a piece of 1/2-inch cement board in front of that 2x4, in between the curb and the 2x4, to give me that proper gap that I need, so that my tile will meet flush with that corner. Now you can use a guide like this. It actually comes in pretty handy. You just need to maybe build yours out a little more than a 1/2-inch, maybe a little less, just come up with something, but a 1/2-inch piece of cement board works really well. Now I'm going to go through and show you a little bit more about how to use this curb, so let's watch.
Okay, so you can see this curb is actually pretty tall. It's like 6 inches tall. So a lot of times what I like to do is just cut them down, and what is all you need to do is just figure where you want to cut it, draw a line, you transfer that line down the sides and then down the back side. And you can either use a circular saw, a table saw, or even a jigsaw to cut this. Now the jigsaw I'm going to show you because I don't know if everybody has all the other saws, and you don't need to go and buy one. You could just use a jigsaw. It's going to get it good enough, and you're just going to cut right down your line. And you just would flip this piece over then once you're done there on the one side, and just cut the other. Just make sure you follow your line and you'll be okay. If it gets a little bit uneven, you're going to be all right to fix that while you're thin setting it down. You can just use a level and get things leveled out nicely, and you'll be in good shape there. You can see that we were able to shrink that down pretty good and made it to look a lot nicer.
Okay, so as you can see, the preformed curbs are really simple. You just cut them to fit, then you thin set them to the floor and to the pan, and you're done. Now I know I put some temporary screws, or not temporary, but I put some screws in the curb to hold it down. I like to do that. It just gives it a little bit more support while it's drying. If it was just thin set that you were using without screws, once that thin set dries, that curb's going to be really solid. You're not going to have anything to worry about. And then when you put tile on those, it makes them even stronger. So they really are great. I really like to use those. Now my favorite preformed curb is this Curdy curb. It already comes pre-wrapped with the membrane, so you don't have to do that membrane, which I'm going to show you soon. You only are going to have to waterproof the edges where it connects with the wall. Real simple to use. I like using that one. I highly recommend you checking that one out. I think that you would really like it too. Now if you are going to use the Curdy board, it really comes in handy, like I said earlier, for you to be able to use that in different sections if you want to build showers or shelves and benches. It really is it's a great buy, because if you buy those shelves and preformed benches separately and the preformed curb separately, you're really going to rack up the money, because those things can get a little expensive, when you can do this on your own and build your own type of bench, build your own curb, build your own types of shelves. So be sure to check that out. I'll have links below in the video so that you can go find those types of things. Now, before we get to the waterproofing, I want to talk to you a little bit more about the other types of curbs that you can install. Now, if you want to put 2x4s down on the floor and wrap that with cement board, you certainly can. It takes a lot longer to do that because the process has a few different steps where you need to put the 2x4s down. Then you have to cut the cement board, put that on. Then you need to tape those joints that you have, fill them with thin set, let that dry, and then you need to waterproof it. And so it takes a little bit more of a process to do that. I don't like to do that because I need the time, and to be honest, I really like these 100% preform or prefab curbs, 100% waterproof prefab curbs a lot better. Also, with the 2x4s, you can wrap them with wire mesh, the same mesh that you'd put on your floor when you're doing your shower pan, and then you would just spread over that wire lath the mud mix that you're using for your shower pan. Maybe a 1/4 inch to 3/8 of an inch thick. Get it built up, let that dry till the next day, and then you can waterproof it. That's actually not a terrible process. That actually works pretty good. But I
don't usually use that one either. And then there's use the concrete or use the mud mix to build your curb, where you just build forms with out of 2x4s and you can build your curb to the width and height that you want, doing it that way, and then waterproof that. So those are the different ways that you can do a curb. Now I want to show you real quick how to waterproof a curb. So here, let's watch.
Okay, so this is an outside corner. Now it could be used for a wall that would be inside your shower. You just stick it up against the wall. But what I'm going to use this for is to wrap it around the curb. And so I have to modify this a little bit, and all I need to do is just cut a little bit off so that it's not too far past the curb right here, and so that it'll go down in here. And so I kind of got it in place here, and now I'm just going to take my finger out. I marked it, my finger. Just going to cut this off, and that will wrap down there. Could just measure that too with the tape measure if you wanted. And now I'll just mark again with my finger. It's right on the C is where I'm going to cut it. I'll just come straight across. I can even be a little shy of that. And now that'll fit in there nice. And then I'm also going to have to run an inside corner in here. It just about is too long for the top of my curb, so I'm just going to trim a little bit of it off. It doesn't have to be, but I'm going to. So to use Curdy and to fasten it correctly, you use a 1/8 by 1/8 trawl. Now they have a Schluter sells a Curdy trawl. You can also order 8 by 8 trawls, 1/8 by 1/8 notch trawls online. Different kinds of them. You don't have to get the Schluter trawl. So again, I'm coming in here and getting ready to put the outside and the inside on. So I'll shove the outside on first. And put my inside now. Okay, so now I'm done with those two outside corners. Now I'm going to run this over the curb. And I'm just going to bring it down to the inside. Now I'm still going to run Curdy band in there. But this, I had some Curdy, and I'm covering the curb to get rid of the raw side. You can't see it anymore, but you did see it. The raw side of that styrofoam. And so I'm just doing the same thing with this. I'm squeezing out the thin set and getting rid of all the bubbles, getting a nice bond. Kind of work this with your fingers at first too, to make sure in these small little spots, just to make sure you get it pressed down there. And now I got the overlap, so I got to get more of the thin set out on top of the Curdy before I put my next piece on.
Okay, I'm going to jump in here real quick while we're doing this. Now this Curdy membrane needs to be overlapped. If you have a seam, it needs to be overlapped at least 2 inches. And so that's what I'm talking about with the overlap. You just thin set on top of the membrane that you already put down in 2 inches, and then
you'll just put that new piece that you're putting on next to it, overlap it 2 inches, and you'll have a tight seal there that will never leak. It'll be 100% waterproof. Now, also with this Kerdi membrane, I could have and should have brought that down the edge of the curb and then onto the pan. Now, this would avoid the next step, which I'm going to show you, using Kerdi band, where I have to bring another piece of this membrane across to make that seal 100% waterproof, and I'll show you that here soon. So you just want to come down the curb with the membrane, out 2 inches onto the pan, and you'll have a nice 100% waterproof seal. And then I could have just gotten away with doing the 2 corners, the inside corner and the outside corner, brought the Kerdi band or the Kerdi membrane down and out onto the pan. Just wanted to clear that up a little bit here for you. Okay, so with this Kerdi band, I'm going to show you how to do this on the opposite wall. It was too hard to get in there with the camera and show some good footage for you, so I'm going to show you how to put that Kerdi band on so you can see exactly what I did in installing the Kerdi band. And I like to try to pre-fold these a little bit before I put them in, so I just went down and I started creasing it. And again, it only needs to be covered 2 inches, so it's like right here. And then you also want to make sure you get a nice crease in here too, so that you don't have a rounded corner. It makes it harder to install the tile. Okay, so you see now how you can waterproof a curb, a preformed curb. You can also do this over a cement board curb, it doesn't matter, but if you do have cement board, you can use a paintable membrane. Now, a paintable membrane is good. I like paintable membranes. You would use that on the entire pan, the curb, once the curb was done, and while the cement board would be on, the thin set you would have to put into the joints, the tape and thin set, and then you'd want to make sure that that dried completely, and then you can waterproof by just painting on this membrane. Now, I have other videos that talk about waterproofing the pan and the shower itself, so be sure to go check those out. Now, I have a custom shower series that will show you from the very beginning of this shower all the way to the end, a step-by-step process of how I installed the tile in this shower, and that you can find on my channel. If you go to my playlist to my custom shower series, you're going to be able to get access to all those videos. Now, if you have any questions, leave comments below. You can also go to my Facebook page. I'll put links below here on all the things that you've seen inside this video, where you can get them, so you can click on those and go check it out. I just really appreciate you watching, and I just want you to know one thing here before we leave. We can all be saved through Jesus Christ. If I can be saved, you can be saved. I'm Joe Latender. Have a great day.